Hello everyone. So today is something a little bit different. It's not comic book related, it's not Conan the Barbarian related. Shocking, I know. And it's not even going to be a rant. I wanted to do a quick for me review of the Downton Abbey movie. Now, I I love Downton Abbey. I love the series because I love the manners and the 19 the early 19 teens and the 1920s are not my favorite style of clothing, but the costumes are just so elaborate and so gorgeous. And everyone is so refined and oh, I love the series. I love story. As much as I love Conan the Barbarian, it's kind of ironic because my favorite type of stories are British period pieces where people walk around manicured lawns and talk about their feelings. Because I like that. So, also, I actually have notes. Because that might actually help me stay on track. So, like I said, I don't want this to be overly long, although whenever I say that, things do tend to go long anyway, so let's just see how this goes. So, to start off, this review will not be spoiler-free, but really quick, if you're interested, I'm just going to give you a quick spoiler-free rundown. The movie is great. I really enjoyed it. It was everything I hoped it would be. And what's one thing, hang on. Sorry, I'm used to critiquing. I'm not really used to praising, so I'm figuring this out. But the movie is absolutely gorgeous. The visuals are stunning. The costumes, for what they are great. The characters are very well done for the most part, with a couple exceptions, which I'll talk about in the main part of the review. And it's just very well done. It feels like the show. Now, on that note, if you have not seen all 6 seasons, don't go see the movie. Watch the seasons first, and then watch it, because this is not making a new acquaintance. This is visiting and catching up with old friends. Because there's no preamble, there's no introduction, you go straight into the story and you are expected to know all the characters. Which I do, because I've watched the series more times than I care to admit. Now, so to summarize, still in a non-spoiler version, my small quips about it are the first act goes a bit fast. I understand they're trying to get us to the royal visit, but the preparations for the royal visit felt a bit fast. There was also a few points where the camera was a bit out of focus, and I think it was on purpose for an artistic style, but I didn't really like it. I don't like when things go blurry. It makes me paranoid about my vision. And so it's always just distracting for me when it does. Side note, I'm still recording on my webcam, but when I did the Valyria number 2 review, I noticed that because I move and swivel my chair, it turns me away from the microphone. And so the audio was really annoying on that, so I'm using my headphone mic in hopes that that will give a higher quality audio. We'll see how that goes. Daisy and Thomas Barrow, in particular, were the 2 characters who I felt they regressed a little in order to make their subplots work. But I'll get into that more in the spoiler section of the review. Again, if you haven't seen the series and you haven't seen the movie, watch the series, watch the movie, and then come back and watch the rest of this review, because now I'm diving into spoilers. So, my first note, because, oh my gosh, I have notes, is mostly just that the movie didn't really have a plot. It's mostly just an inciting incident, which leads to a lot of subplots. And I suppose you could say that Mary is the main plot, and Downton Abbey really has always been Mary's story. Even when it branches off and deals with other characters, it always comes back to Mary. And Mary is a great leading character because she is so multifaceted. I really enjoy her, even though when it came to season 6, when Edith finally called her out and was just like, "You're a bitch," I was applauding because it's like, thank you. She really needed to hear that. So Mary is a character I love, but I know she's flawed, and I like that. I like that we got to see her and her flaws. However, her subplot in this movie is not really enough to carry a movie. It's not as strong as some of the other subplots, which is, I mean, it's an ensemble story, so you can't really have one overarching plot. You have, like I said, the inciting incident, and everything just kind of spirals out from there. On the subject of Mary, there is a scene towards the end where Mary is talking to the Dowager Countess, Violet, who is another of my favorite characters, and it's very much a passing the torch moment, which I really enjoyed, and it made me cry, honestly, because it was a great moment, and it didn't feel like there was any kind of agenda in it, like, oh, I'm not leaving it in, sorry, Violet says, basically, I know I'm leaving Downton in good hands, and Mary's like, oh, well, Papa, no, I'm leaving it in your hands, which could have, in a lot of stories, especially nowadays, I would roll my eyes because it would feel like a kind of feminist agenda, oh, men are dumb things, but I really enjoyed it, and it didn't feel like that, because Mary has definitely earned her place. And when I was talking to my mom after the movie, we were talking about how Mary can be bitter and overwhelming. And one thing I pointed out was I don't think Mary could handle everything the plot has thrown at her if she wasn't. Because, because she really is the reason Downton is still standing. And the reason they do still have it. Matthew did make it possible, but Mary is the one who has kept it going. A note on the children, and then I'll get to Matthew. So because of that passing the torch thing, one scene that was not in the movie that I really wish had been was I would have loved to see Violet interact with her great-grandchildren, because there are 4 of them at this point. There's Sybil's daughter, Sibby. There's Marigold, who is Edith's illegitimate daughter. And then Mary has George from her marriage to Matthew. And she also has Caroline from her marriage to Henry. And you may remember at the very end of season 6, Mary revealed that she was pregnant again. And I just would have loved to see a kind of legacy moment of Violet interacting with the children and just kind of showing that there is that connection. Because I don't think we've actually ever seen Violet really interact with the children. And now that they're at a point where they can talk, they could probably hold conversations, although we never really got to see that. That was another thing. We really didn't see much of the children. It was mostly just a few glances at them. And there are a couple scenes when they show up, but we never really hear them talk, and they never have conversations with anyone. Which is it goes for the fact that there is a lot happening in this movie, and so there are a few times, like I said, where it does feel a little rushed, especially in the first act, but it carries through. So speaking of Matthew, who was played by Dan Stevens in the first 3 seasons. Matthew was, again, another one of my favorite characters, and I was really sad when he left. And, you know, in anticipation of the movie, I was thinking a lot about this series, and I really wish Dan Stevens hadn't left. I really wish we could have seen 6 seasons of him and Mary building their relationship, figuring out their marriage, and figuring out Downton together. We didn't get that, and for me, seasons 4, 5, and 6 are the weakest. After he leaves, I really wish we'd had a full story with him. And my biggest problem with season 6, honestly, was we come back to a point where, and I think it was Julian Fellows, the creator, who talked about in a special feature on the DVD, he's like, oh, well, we've ended up right back where we were in season 1 with who are Mary and Edith going to marry. And that always bugged me, because I'm like, we haven't progressed beyond this. It's been like 10, 12 years, and we haven't moved past this. I mean, 3, 4, and 5 or 4, 5, and 6 are still good. I still enjoyed them. I just think they would have been better if we'd been able to still have Matthew. And if we hadn't come back to this, oh, who is Mary going to marry? I wanted her married to Matthew. I just want a consistent relationship in a story. I don't want this will they, won't they get. I want an established, happy couple figuring out life together, whose story does not involve arguments falling out. I wanted Mary and Matthew to figure out how to become Robert and Cora, basically. But Dan Stevens did not stay, and so the Downton Abbey theme, or suite, which is very distinctive, da 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 da. Anyway, so that song is actually called Did I Make the Most of Loving You? And what most people don't know is that that song actually has lyrics. And I've always been very frustrated that the show never utilized the version with lyrics. And so with the movie, I was thinking ahead of time, oh, I wonder if they're finally going to use the version with the lyrics, because I would love to see that one actually utilized. They did not. And as it started in the credits, I realized it wasn't going to. It was just going to be the regular orchestral theme. And I realized that was actually better, because the lyrics for Did I Make the Most of Loving You are very much... It may just be me associating them, but it very much feels like a song about Mary and Matthew. Because it's a song about regret and lost time and love. Did I make the most of loving you? So many things we didn't do. Did I give you all my heart could give? Did I give you all my heart could give? So many things were left unsaid. So yeah, it's a very sad song in its way. And I mean, even just listening to the orchestral version, it always sounded very sad to me, even before I heard the lyrics. And then I heard the lyrics and I'm like, oh, well, that's perfect. So the kind of deep, tragic beauty of the theme is exactly what the lyrics are. And I realized, overall, I'm glad they didn't use it for the movie, because it would have gone too far back to Mary and Matthew. And Matthew actually is not mentioned in this movie at all. Aside from the fact we see cousin Isabel, who is still a part of the family. She's now married to Mary's godfather, whose name I don't quite remember because I'm terrible with names. But she's still a part of the family. She still comes to the family dinners and everything. But other than that, there's no mention of Matthew. And I'm glad, because season 6 really did see Mary moving on. We had the scene in the graveyard where she goes, "Oh, I am not gonna cry." That scene always makes me tear up. Where we see her in the graveyard at Matthew's grave talking to him, essentially asking, am I allowed to... I'm not gonna cry. The movie made me cry like 3 times, honestly. But yeah, that moment in the grave where she runs into Isabel, who gives her permission to be happy again, basically, saying, well, you don't need my forgiveness, and you don't need my permission. Which is a big step, because, I mean, season 3, when Mary did start to come, or season 4, when Mary started to come out of her depression, and she started flirting again, Isabel could not handle it. She's like, I can't move on from this. And I understand, she had lost her son, so I don't mean to make a mockery of that. The one character who I wish had, well, the one dead character who I wish had been mentioned, because there's a character who didn't show up that I really wish had, but I'll get to that. The one deceased character who I wish had been mentioned was actually Edith's former lover, Michael Gregson, the father of Marigold. And I'm not saying I wanted some random reference. We find out, spoilers, that Edith is pregnant. She thinks she's pregnant. It's actually never confirmed, despite this being a pretty important subplot. She's not even sure yet. Which is going to be really embarrassing if Bertie was like, yeah, Your Majesty, I can't travel to the colonies with your son because my wife's pregnant. Oh no, false alarm, sorry. So hopefully she is actually pregnant. But, so we find out Edith is pregnant, and she reveals this right after her husband, Bertie, is asked to go on a tour of, like, the South African colonies and everything with the prince. And he's asked by the king himself, and so he totally agrees, because he's like, this is a great opportunity. It's also part of his job, is to do what the king asks of him. And Edith is like, okay, but I think I'm pregnant, so I would be giving birth just about the same time you'll be leaving for 3 months. And as it was revealed, I immediately remembered, you know, the last time she got pregnant, the father went to a foreign country and was killed by Nazis. Good thing my channel is not demonetized, or is not monetized, because that would probably get me demonetized right away. But yeah, I mean, Michael Gregson went to Germany and died and was killed. And what did it take, like 2 seasons for us to actually get a resolution with a confirmation that he was dead? And so I wanted this moment where Edith, because Edith does get a bit, not quite shaken, I'm not sure what the word is, but we can see that this is bothering her. She even goes for a walk early in the morning, and Bertie comes and finds her, and he's like, oh, there you are, and they talk. And I'm like, I just wanted a moment where she's like, I know this is irrational, but the last time I got pregnant and the man I love left, he didn't come back. I just, like, I get that it's been a long time, but I still would have liked, and not that I wanted some big melodramatic fuss. I didn't want this to be some big back and forth where it's like, what's bothering you? Nothing. What's bothering you? Nothing. Something's clearly bothering. No, I just wanted this scene where they're talking for her to say, look, I know it's stupid, but this is what happened last time, and I'm just scared it's gonna happen again. And I know it's totally different that he's going to the colonies as opposed to going to Germany, But still, I just felt like it was kind of a missed opportunity, and I would have actually liked that better than Edith complaining about her life. Because she goes, when she finally opens up to Bertie, she talks about, I used to have a job I loved, and now I host people I don't really like, and I go to committees that chose me, not that I chose, and I'm like, you are rich, and you're married to a man who loves you, and you have your daughter, and now you're pregnant again? Please stop whining. Please stop whining. I understand rich people have problems too, but please stop whining. And I just felt the admittedly irrational fear would have worked better for me than the whole, I just want to have control over my own life. Okay. It still works, it's just a personal note for me where I would have preferred if they'd gone the other way. Okay. So, characters whose subplots I really did like in this movie before I go into the ones I didn't like. So, Tom Branson is the best thing in this movie. Tom Branson is the one who solves a lot of problems, honestly. And, well, actually, Anna is the one who actually solves problems, but Tom Branson really has come such a long way, and especially where the seasons 4 and 5 really saw him wrestling with, do I stay here? I don't agree with these people on everything, but they are family. And he's very much come into it, but it's not this, oh yeah, everything's fine now. He tells Princess Mary at one point, not Mary Crawley, the actual Princess Mary, he says, you figure out what's important. And for him, what was important was his daughter, and the fact that this is her family, and she lives at Downton with her family. And that was very well done. Also, he gets a new love interest, who finally is not someone stupid, because poor Tom, ever since Sybil died, he had the maid who was just a social climbing little twit who got him drunk, date raped him, kind of, and then the obnoxious Miss Bunting, who thankfully was not there, though her echoes were heard in Daisy. We'll get to Daisy. But he got a love interest who I actually like, and who is really sweet and who the family approves of. So if there's a second movie, I would not be opposed to seeing more of Tom and Lucy. So yeah, Tom is the best part of the movie. He has the best subplot, and he's the best character in the movie, honestly. I did like Mary's arc. It did feel a bit redundant, because she's basically going, why am I still doing this? Should I still be doing this? Am I wasting my time? What's the point? And should Downton carry on? Just accept it. Downton will carry on. Move on. But at the same time, the way it was handled was very well done. And it's really just two scenes, one where she's talking to Anna and one where she's talking to Violet. And it still ends well. Violet, as usual, is one of the best characters in the whole story. I never argue. I explain. And she has this, her subplot is basically social climbing and ensuring the family's safety, which I don't mind too much. Robert and Cora don't seem to do much. They're happy together, which I'm fine with. Let them be happy. Edith, I've already talked about. Cousin Isabel is just mostly hanging around with Cousin Violet and figuring things out. Anna, the maid, she and John Bates have their son, who we really only see for a moment as they're carrying him and leaving the house. But still, I enjoyed it. Anna makes things happen. Anna is like the one person who really gets stuff done. And she is not taking anything from anyone at this point. She's just like, no. We're doing this my way. And it wasn't overbearing, though. It was just really nice to see. She's at this point where she's just, we're getting things done. There wasn't much between her and Bates. I don't think we really got to see them talk, but their story was resolved in series 6, or season 6. So I'm okay with that one. I'm already at 26 minutes and I'm not done. Okay, this is gonna be long anyway. Even reviewing something I like, it gets long. So one thing is Anna has a subplot with, spoilers, the Queen's dressmaker is a thief who keeps just stealing odds and ends, and her justification is just, they have it, they're not even gonna notice it, I couldn't buy it with a year's wages, so I'm just gonna take it. She's a brat, obviously. I have no problem with the subplot itself. The one thing I wish was that it had actually been Baxter, Cora's lady's maid, who had resolved it, because Baxter doesn't really have a subplot, which overall is fine. Molesley shows up, and, you know, they have their cute moment, although they're still not together. What are you people waiting for? You're wasting time at this point. But Baxter had the subplot in season 5 or 6? 5 or 6, whatever, that she had been a thief. And Thomas was blackmailing her with that. And so it would have been a nice full circle if she was the one who caught the thief and, yes, blackmailed her. The whole thing with Edith's ball gown not showing up and then showing up and being too big, it easily could have worked with Cora, and then you could have had Baxter, the former thief, calling out the Queen's dressmaker, who was a thief. And I just feel that that would have been a better full circle. So, speaking of Thomas, the two subplots that I did not like were Thomas and Daisy. And with Thomas, it's not so much that I had a problem with the subplot, I just felt that both those characters were regressed from previous development, and so they didn't quite... It felt a bit forced, like they were trying to force these characters to have a subplot, and they had to regress the characters in order to make that happen. Thomas, they clearly just wanted to get him out of the house, so they made him, one, I can't tell if he was being snobbish or incompetent, but, you know, season 6 really, I hated Thomas through season 5, and it wasn't until season 6 that he was seriously humbled, and he wasn't an antagonist anymore. He was actually a character I came to care about. And so that's part of why I didn't like seeing him being all snobbish again, was because I felt like, it's like, where did that humility go? Like, I understand he's always going to be a bit of a snob, but I would have liked to, I didn't want to see him go that indignant again. And I would have actually liked, for him to admit that he couldn't handle the royal visit, and so that he wouldn't, sorry, I'm getting thirsty, so he wouldn't, I would have liked to see him and Carson work together, because I feel like that's very much what happened after season 6. It's you had Carson training Thomas. And so I can see Thomas being a little indignant, like, I can do this. Okay, I can't do this, Carson, will you please help me? I would have preferred that. I understand why they wanted to do the whole homosexual subplot with him going to the gay club and getting arrested for it, and he gets a boyfriend at the end. It only took him 15 years. 17 years. Yeah, so that was... I just felt it was forced a bit too much. Daisy is the... Okay, so I mentioned that Miss Bunting, the obnoxious socialist, anti-monarchist, does not show up, but we hear her echoes in Daisy, who is a total wet blanket on the whole royal visit. And she's like, why do you bother? Because she's anti-monarchist. She thinks she's Labour Party, essentially. They call her a Republican, which is weird, because I'm like, I'm not sure at this point. But she's not a monarchist, so I guess she is a Republican. I'm not going into that. But so she's just very, it's royals, why are you bothering? And then you have the fact, so she is engaged to Andy, which we saw them get together at the end of season 6, which was really cute. And I didn't like that they're engaged, but she keeps going, we'll get married when we're ready. I'm not ready. It's like, it's William all over again. But she's bored because he's not fighting the monarchy, and he is a farmer. Just let him be a farmer. And speaking of, the one character who is still alive, who did not show up, that really should have showed up, who I really wanted to see, one of my favorite characters, is Mr. Mason, Daisy's father-in-law, and from her first marriage to William in season 2. And Daisy's relationship with her father-in-law was one of the highlights of the series for me. I love father-daughter stories, and especially surrogates. It's why I love The Witcher. It's why I loved Logan and other stories where, you know, a little orphan basically gets taken in by her tough father figure who looks after her. And we had this great development where he gave her advice and he helped her figure things out, and he became a father to her. And we know that Andy was going to train under him to be a farmer. There's no mention of the farm. There's no mention of Andy farming. There's no mention of them leaving the house to move to the farm. And that was something where I'm like, Daisy, if you hate the royals and you hate the system so much, quit your job in the kitchen and go work the farm with Mr. Mason and Andy. I just felt like I said, I felt Daisy regressed. I felt like they went too much into her politics and her being a rebel, or a low-key revolutionist, I guess. Now, it is really nice to see, because there's a scene where she actually interrupts Mrs. Patmore and gives her some advice, which is really nice to see, because when we first saw Daisy, she was this shy, skittish thing who just hid in the corner and trembled if Mrs. Patmore looked at her. So it was nice to see that she's come into her own. I just wish they hadn't gone the way they did with her. Okay, but, so, just a couple, I know I can complain about anything, even if not especially the things I love, but I really did enjoy the movie. It was really good, and if you've watched the series, and if you're a fan of it, I highly recommend the movie. It was everything I wanted it to be. Overall. Yeah, it's visually stunning, the costumes are great, the scenic shots, the wide shots, every time they pan over the Abbey, it's just, especially, you get to see it at sunset, you get to see it at night, lit up, it's, the movie is a visual spectacular, which I'm coming to discover, if a movie is beautiful, I will forgive a lot. I've noticed that with, the next movie I'm gonna see is Abominable from DreamWorks Animation, and then Frozen 2. And even with Abominable, which I think Abominable is gonna be really good, but I'm like, well, if nothing else, it's gonna be pretty. I trust DreamWorks to give me that much. Although, I don't know, I wasn't really impressed with... How to Train Your Dragon 3 was very well animated, the visuals were just kind of to me, except for the wedding scene. But Frozen 2, now, if you watch my channel, you know I hated Frozen. I did a 38-minute rant on why I hate Frozen. It was the first video I uploaded here. But I'm really looking forward to Frozen 2, and I'm kind of saying, well, even if the story is as awful as the first one, the visuals are going to be gorgeous. Also, Elsa has like 4 or 5 different dresses, which I absolutely love. And so I'm looking forward to watching the movie itself. But yeah, so if you give me a visually stunning movie, and also, I mean, we got to see a military parade in full royal regalia. Oh, it was lovely. It was absolutely visually stunning and spectacular. And I highly recommend it. And if you haven't seen Downton Abbey, I'm not sure why you're still here. Oh, wait. I'm kind of counting on some of my friends who might not like Downton Abbey, who like me to watch this anyway. But I highly recommend Downton Abbey, both the series and the movie. And I think that's all I have to say. So thank you so much for listening and sticking with me. I really appreciate it. And if you like the video, I would really appreciate a like and a comment. Let me know what you thought. Let me know if you've seen the movie and what you think of my points. I would love to hear from you. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Click the bell. And you can check me out on social media, all of which are linked down in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next time.